Welcome to the pilot episode of the brand new premiere of the A Song of Ice and Fire podcast, or as I like to call it, the A Stench of Intense Ass Fumes podcast. My name is Andrew, and I'm here with my lovely hostess.
Hello there.
Lucas. Man, we need to work on that name.
We do.
It's so bad. This is already scuffed.
We gotta come up with screen names.
Yeah, that's right. You guys now have our names. I might as well give you my social security number at this point because
I actually just wrote it down when you were filling out your form.
Yeah, oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh no. Somebody's gonna hack into our webcam here. They already know my first name, so they already have all of my credit cards. They have all of my IP addresses. Anywho, this is our first ever episode. So, assuming that this ever does get uploaded to the YouTubes, be sure to give us any feedback on how to improve. You can be ruthless towards Lucas.
Please
because,
don't.
Well,
I can't handle it.
Yeah, my entire identity is riding on this video being a smash hit, so if it doesn't get all the views I want, and if you guys aren't very nice to me in the comments, I might go over the edge, so just bear that in mind before you click enter.
Why do you think we're doing this?
I need the validation, guys. Please like the video and comment and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Anywho, so what the hell are we even here for? So the idea here, I am an absolute degenerate, and I have been basically binge watching without any agency. It's not a choice anymore. It's just a thing I pathologically do at this point. Alt Swift X, Preston Jacobs, Glidus, Fantasy Haven, pretty much any A Song of Ice and Fire YouTuber out there. I've spent thousands of hours of my life listening to them talk. And frankly, it's a bit pathetic, so I thought that I might try my hand at it and create a little something of my own for once in my life, rather than just consuming. So I've background on where we're at. I finished all of the books relatively recently, but I've been in this community for a long time. Finished the show right around when it aired, and was very unsatisfied, as was pretty much everybody else, with the ending of season 8. So jumped onto the books bandwagon, and here I am. And Lucas, tell everybody a little bit about where you're at.
Yeah. So as you said, I started with the show, was very disappointed, and felt I needed a better ending. So I started the books probably sometime around last year, listening to the audiobook, and up to this point, I'm probably a third of the way through A Storm of Swords, somewhere around there. And, yeah. That's where I'm at.
He started because he hated season 8, and he stayed for the food descriptions.
Yeah.
He loved the grease running down chins. You're Reddit about you said you're at the part where Jane Westerling is getting introduced?
Just around there, yeah.
Oh, boy. You get to hear all about her birthing hips. It's going to be real fun.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that part. Yeah, that part was great.
So that's a little background on us. So I already mentioned I'm a big fan of some of the big names in the A Song of Ice and Fire community, and our boys Glidus and Alt Swift X both did a similar thing to what we're doing now. They did a character alignment chart for all of the characters in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, all the main characters, I guess. And so we're going to try our hand at that. That's kind of the inspiration here. Mostly because we seen it as one of the things in that video, and they didn't get all that serious about it. Let's be real. We're the heavy hitters. We're the experts. They were in there talking about their vibes and their feelings. Well, we're here to give you the objective interpretation.
Cold hard facts.
That's
what we're
right.
about.
And here's the deal. There were generalizations, which of course there were, about where the characters were on the chart across the entire series, but we definitely know that there's a lot of changes, especially for certain characters, in terms of where they fall on this chart here. I mean, from book 1 to book 5, certain characters are basically polar opposites, even. So we're focusing exclusively on book 1 content for this video. So anything book 1 or beforehand, if it's a character that was around for Robert's Rebellion or before that. So that's the idea. But I'm realizing I got a little ahead of myself. I haven't even explained what an alignment chart is.
Well, you better do that.
Yeah, I guess I better.
I don't know what we're doing here.
So, all right. For any of you guys that are normal human beings and that do not engage in a bit of tomfoolery and role play in a good old game of Dungeons and Dragons, you may not be familiar. The alignment chart we're looking at here is based on Gary Gygax's Dungeons and Dragons. So it basically, if I were to describe it, it generalizes characters on 2 criteria. One being their morality. Are they good? Are they evil? And the other being kind of their personality and their values, I guess. So are they more lawful or are they more chaotic? What do those words mean? Hell if any of us know. At the end of the day, just like Glidus and Alt-Swift X did, we're going to go a lot on vibes, although we do have some sort of criteria we're using that is in my head, and you can decide after you listen to this if you agree or not. So, I guess without further ado, last thing, what are we focusing on here? What is the primary medium we're using? I think we're going to use the show content as much as we can, but we're going to hold the book as the primary means that we're using for this ranking. So for anybody that's only seen the show, no problem. Most of this is going to be the exact same. In fact, the show has some additional content that it's added, a bit of deviation. Book 1 is generally pretty close in adaptation to the show. But little things like Cersei's meeting with Catelyn after Bran falls out of the tower.
Falls. Right.
Yes. That's an example of a show-only interaction that really humanizes Cersei. So we might utilize certain moments like that, just for the sake of keeping this as well-rounded as possible. But now for real, I guess we can get started here with, I've already got him highlighted. We've got a really difficult case here. Just kidding. He's going to be sort of our baseline to start. Our
chaotic
good
evil baseline.
Yes, that's right. yes. Our chaotic evil baseline, Mr. Dead Ned. So where do you think Ned Stark lies on this here graph?
Yeah, definitely up in that top left quadrant there.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any. Yeah, hot take. I know. But,
Yeah, I don't think there's any denying that Ned and his damnable honor is a defining character trait here. One of the things we talked about, because unfortunately this isn't the first time we're recording this, because Bandicam really decided to really shove one up our arses today, so we're redoing it. But one of the things we talked about in the first run is kind of about what is it that really drives Ned more than the other? Because at the end of the day, I think most characters, when it comes to this sort of chart, it's all just a chart. It's not like it's necessarily based on anything real, but usually a character is going to tend towards one side or the other. I feel like you're either more lawful and your actions may be good as a consequence of that lawful nature, or you're focused on being morally good, and then you might be more lawful or chaotic as a result. So it's sort of like what drives the other. Mm-hmm. And in Ned's case, it kind of goes both ways, I think. But give an example, I guess.
I was saying earlier, I guess the first time we did this, that he leans more towards lawful for the most part. And I guess we did bring up the case towards the end of the show where he tends more towards good decisions that may not have been as lawful, because mostly his character is driven by honor, and usually, until there's, like we said, if like his family gets involved with anything or they might be hurt or anything, his actions tend more toward good in that might not be as lawful.
Yeah, the examples we were given earlier, the first thing that we see Ned do when he's introduced in both the show and the books after the prologue of A Game of Thrones is we see him beheading. In the books it's Garrett, in the show it's Willem, I think is the name. But we see him beheading the Night's Watchman that fled after watching Waymar Royce and their fellow Night's Watchmen get beheaded by the White Walker. The others. And it's very clear in the show, as well as I think in the book, I mean, based on Bran's account, that he doesn't want to do... Mm-hmm. He doesn't like killing people. He's definitely not one of those guys. He's not Dario Naharis running around killing people for sport. Or Khal Drogo, that's a better example. He's a guy that really is... it's more a necessity based on his moral compass and his honor. His sense of being lawful and doing what he has to uphold the Seven Kingdoms laws.
Right, and that was my kind of reasoning for putting him more towards lawful as opposed to good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the argument can be made either way. I mean, he's definitely... Either way, he's the baseline for both of these, I feel like. Yeah,
I definitely think... I think I agree with you. I think it's just interesting to me, like, when we get to the episode Baelor, I think is that the last episode of Game of Thrones of season 1?
I think it's the one right before.
Okay. Or it's Ned 15 in the book of Game of Thrones where he's being beheaded. I believe, it was interesting that after Varys had talked with him in the dungeons about what would happen, what of your daughters, what's going to happen now that you've decided to double down on this sense of I have to be honest and truthful about the nature of Joffrey's birth and stuff. And all of a sudden, you get him on the Sept of Baelor. He's saying, "Yeah, I'm a traitor. I conspired to steal the throne from my best friend and my brother in arms, Robert Baratheon." So I mean, it's an interesting. It's interesting that once his family was concerned, he did finally realize that he needed to prioritize the good of his daughters, I guess, and of his house. I mean. It's just kind of a weird dynamic. One of the things I do think about a lot, though, is the whole thing with Jon Snow. And I know we're only focusing on book 1, so I guess spoilers for anybody that hasn't gotten through at least the show. This is basically canonical for the books at this point.
Is it really?
I mean, pretty much.
Okay.
But Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen are the parents of Jon Snow. How Ned handles that situation is really interesting.
That's definitely more of a good action than a lawful action, I feel like.
Well, I actually I think it's
really.
I think, but just because, well, no. Yeah, I definitely agree on his face. It is definitely a more good action that he tarnishes his honor and allows him to be raised as a bastard,
right? As
opposed to giving the truth of the matter, even if it means that the child dies,
right?
But I guess. I don't know. So I agree with you. I don't know why. I don't know why I said I disagree. But it's just interesting to me that he prioritizes good. It seems like in really, really trying times, but for the most part, he always tries to stay by his honorable, lawful nature. Yeah,
he's lawful until the decisions kind of are unlawful, and then that's when the good comes in.
Until they throw him in a fucking dungeon.
Right.
For like, how long was he in there?
I don't know. I don't remember.
It was like
a long time.
Like many days. I think it was over a week. I can't remember exactly if it was referenced in the books, but long time. So
long enough for the honorable Ned Stark to lose his way.
Yeah, I mean. It was really oh my gosh, one of the really the highlight moments, not highlight for the character, but it's a really good moment in the books is I think it's the Ned 14 or 13 where it's him in the dungeon and it's him crying, thinking about all of the promises he's made and like really just reflecting. Man, that's such a good moment in the books for him. But yeah, I think he's a bit more lawful than he is well, it's not to say that he's not good, but I think he prioritizes being lawful over good most of the time. Yeah. This might move. He might just be put right at the very top left, but I think we'll save that spot for another person later in the list. So we spent enough time, I think, on our so-called baseline. So who do you want to go for next here?
Well, I feel like we should probably establish a chaotic evil baseline. On the opposite end.
And who better than
King Joffrey?
Ooh,
maybe.
Okay,
Or who do you have in mind? Because I haven't really taken a close look at who's on this list over here.
Well, I think Joffrey in season 1 and
you know what?
is a good example. I mean,
if it's just season 1, I feel like there's just not as much to go off of. I mean, until the end, but
yeah, I definitely think that one of the things that's difficult about this list is there's a lot of children on here, and to say that children have the agency to be like, you're objectively the most evil piece of garbage, Joffrey, but you're also you're 12 or no, you're 13 in the books, and you're
but 13 in the books
14,
is like,
15,
he's almost a man grown.
Yeah, exactly, that is true. No, I definitely think that he's. I mean, nobody disputes that he's on the evil side. Mm-hmm. I think that in the first book,
one, he might be less chaotic.
Yeah. I mean, I think that his chaos. He's definitely an example of kind of the opposite of Ned Stark in the sense that like he's not driven by his chaotic or lawful nature, but rather by like he has a very self-centered.
If you're looking at like good and evil as what is it? Personality and lawful and chaotic is character, is that what you're saying?
It was personality is lawful versus chaotic, and then morality is really good versus evil.
Okay, because I was thinking he's definitely more... He doesn't really have like a established core of values or anything to have a character thing, so it's more of a personality thing for him. So whichever one... I mean, evil or chaotic, that would be. I think he tends more towards that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think, and when we talk about evil and evil, this is where, I mean, like we said earlier, I gave the disclaimer, so if anybody's in the comments about to get all keyboard warrior on me because I am acting as though I know exactly the definition of each of these terms, nobody knows for sure, or we're not going to claim to know for sure, but I think that if we were to talk about good and evil, I really feel like one of the criteria, not the only one, but one of is, are you more altruistic or are you more selfish? Like, are you more, when you make a decision, is it based on how you feel in the moment? Is it based on what you want? Is it based on your long-term plans, or is it other people? Mm-hmm. And I definitely think Joffrey's an example of somebody where it almost feels like he's kind of lawful, in the sense that he's definitely more self-centered, no doubt about it, but he goes out of his way with Sansa when they're courting each other. He's very by the books. He's doing all of the, like, he's got all of the memorized lines, that a man of noble birth would be saying. It's like, okay.
And then I feel like
the game, but
definitely when he starts to drift towards chaotic is definitely when he's put into that king role. That's probably
I mean, his dad dying, well, his king dying, and when Robert Baratheon dies, I think that definitely, partially for sure because he's put into that newfound power role, but also I think Robert Baratheon really is. It seems like it's kind of sad because Joffrey definitely seems like he's highly impacted by Robert. I mean, like the story of him killing a cat and bringing it to Robert, thinking that he'd get validation for it because Robert was a warrior and he was this guy that goes out of his way to kill the bad people and take what's his and become the king. And Joffrey, I mean, this is later in the books, I guess, but so another spoiler, but the cat's paw, at least the going narrative right now is that he's the one who sent the assassin to go kill Bran. So
Robert?
Joffrey.
Yeah, okay.
That's at least the going. That's what I think. Is that in book 3 or 4 that it's revealed? I can't remember. It's later on.
Okay.
But, I don't know. It just seems like there's several instances where he does things that it seems like he's either directly trying to get validation from Robert, or it's at the very least like him emulating what he thinks Robert would do.
Okay.
Which is just, it's interesting to me. So I don't know. I definitely think he seems more neutral evil to me because I can see an argument for both chaotic and lawful,
Yeah, but definitely in book 1, I think neutral is probably good.
Yeah, he definitely, I would agree. I mean, there's a good argument to be made that later in the books, he's going to tend towards the chaotic side because most of that is because I think he's so driven by his, like, what he wants right in that moment, how he feels in that moment, that it's almost, it's like self-destructive, like, and destructive for everybody around him. And it's just chaos all over. but it's not even.
It's like it's just child behavior.
It really is.
Because
he's
a right. Fucking 13-year-old king.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he's nothing compared to his little brother Tomo. He's such a good king. Little easily manipulated Tommen.
I just think about also another spoiler alert. Just that one scene when he just jumps out the window is just so iconic because it's just,
oh my god,
it's no music and it's just I don't know that it threw me for a loop when I watched it in the show.
Yeah,
it was kind of
very I mean. It's him doing what literally all of the actors wanted to do in real life as they were getting more and more of the scripts.
You know what? That wasn't even in the script, actually. That's just what he felt like doing.
So, yeah, all right. I think Joffrey, I mean, I could see him going anywhere, really, on the evil side. Because, I mean, it goes back to agency. Like, he's a young kid, so I don't know how evil he can really... Like, how much we can attribute his actions to him. I think a lot... I mean, we see, and in the show at least... conversations between him and Cersei, where Cersei is very clearly like pushing him towards that being more selfish. Like that's the other thing is it's not just Robert, it's Cersei that has a huge sway on him and is what leads him to develop the way he does. Where she's like, what was it in episode 2? They're talking and he's like, oh, you acknowledge that the Starks are enemies, and she says, anybody that's not us is enemies.
Yeah,
that's a crazy statement.
It is.
Like, but you know that makes sense that he's. So, I think he kind of just goes around middle here.
Yeah, I can agree.
So, this one, if we want a chaotic evil baseline...
Okay, I see where you're leaning.
But like... All right. I was going to save him for later, but man, like, talk about the exact polar opposite of Ned Stark. Lord Peter Baelish. Tell us about Peter Baelish.
Peter Baelish. I think I gotta say he's a little higher than Ned in that top left corner there. I think I gotta.
Oh, really? Yeah. Is he the one we're saving this spot for?
That's the one.
The top?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, but he's definitely more of a baseline for chaotic evil.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure. I don't know why I didn't point that out at first, but
yeah, no, it's kind of crazy how, I mean, he's one of the rare instances where, at least in the early part of the show, he's a character that gets there are so many great moments in the show only for him, and then simultaneously so many terrible show only moments that run, because his character gets done dirty later. But in season 1, Chaos is a Ladder, that's like in the top 5 lines of all time in the show. Like, it's so
he has some great moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's so clear that, I mean, he's such a crazy example of somebody who, like, when he's young, like, it's literally just childhood trauma. He's such an easy example where, like, him not getting the girl, like, him being, in his mind, the protagonist, the knight in shining armor, the guy who's got to beat the brute. He's got to beat, what is his name? Ned Stark's older brother. Brandon. Yeah. Brandon Stark. Yeah, he's got to beat Brandon Stark to win Catelyn Tully's hand, and
this is literally
he just gets fucked up.
The schoolyard kid that gets pushed aside, and then one day he just tells his one friend not to come to school tomorrow. You gotta be really worried.
Yeah, dude,
But this is what happens when you give that kid just insane political power.
I mean, when he comes from like nothing, like he's such a minor lord, but yet he's literally Sansa. Like he's literally Sansa if she like disenfranchised Sansa, because he grows up on the stories. He grows up on all of the like the noble, like, I'm gonna be the male version, rather she's the female version of, like, I'm gonna be a good lady. I'm gonna be the knight. I'm gonna be the guy that beats the brute. I'm gonna get the girl. I'm gonna be the lord. I'm gonna be a good lord. I'm gonna do all of these things. And then he just gets shit on.
Gets bitch slapped
over and over. And it's so strange, his dynamic with Catelyn after, because you think about it and, like, he still believes genuinely that he slept with Catelyn when it was actually Lysa who crawled in his bed. So that's like crazy, because in his mind,
later on, or is that early on?
That's early on.
I guess I missed that part.
I think no, it might be later on actually that it's really
okay.
It's in the show as well, I believe, because I think it's at some point he mentions that he took Catelyn Tully's maidenhead, but he and Catelyn overtly I think it's in season 1 or something, I don't remember, but it's stated like she hears that, she's like, no, he fucking didn't. What are you talking about? But he really believes
it. Was Lysa. That's interesting.
I
guess I missed that, but
because it should like that has to be like if he really does believe it. I can't even imagine how much that changes him, because you got to think if you're him, then you think that girl did love me, and it's the system that took her away from me. Like she wanted me just as much as I wanted her, but she had to leave and be with the Starks because they're noble and I'm just some
low lord.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good, well-written character. I love his dynamic with Sansa, but he is a piece of shit. I mean...
and it's also really interesting seeing those two opposite ends of the spectrum interact. Like, any interaction between Ned and...
Oh my god,
and dude is like...
Well, and he's such a... This is where it's like, he's so good at being everybody's friend. Like, he's got such a good persona of being the guy that's like, I love being useful, I love being friends with people. Like he goes out of his way to help Ned, and all the while, like, he's so opportunistic. I mean, he's got this facade that he's everybody's friend, but you go out of your way he goes out of his way to, when hearing about the Cat's Paw assassin, he claims that it was his dagger, and he sets up the whole thing that it was Tyrion. And that's part of why it was so crazy later on, though, when it's revealed that Joffrey was allegedly the one that sent the assassin, because that means that Littlefinger just thought that up on the fly and was like, oh, I'm going to create chaos just for the sake of...
Chaos for the sake of chaos.
Yeah, because through the chaos...
To climb the ladder of chaos.
Yeah, he facilitates the entire war between the Lannisters and the Starks. Because there was no attempted murder. They didn't send the assassin. I mean, of course, Jaime did push him ran out of the building, but, you know, that entire investigation wouldn't even have came to a head if he hadn't given Catelyn the hint that it was Tyrion Lannister's dagger, even though it wasn't.
And... also, too, I feel like we haven't talked about how he initiated the whole, the whole thing with Robert Aaron, or when he was...
Oh, yeah.
Like that whole situation. I
lost
that for a second, but...
Yeah, that's so crazy, dude. He goes out of his way to... And most of the time, like, it's so crazy because he's improvising so much. Because you think... One of the things that he really does a good job of letting on, at least in the books, is like he has this grand plan, but in reality, it's this like his plan is very nebulous. It's like I'm gonna end. I see myself on the Iron Throne. Like that's not a good impression. Cut that from the video. But he literally like his plan is just to end up on the Iron Throne. But in reality, like he doesn't have any detailed plan of getting there. He just starts chaos.
Yeah.
And it's very, like, through the chaos, he buddies up with people that are in need of buddies, and all the while he's finding ways to become, absolutely essential to that person, and then when things come to a head, he can jump ship and go to the other side and totally wreck that person if he needs, just like he did with Ned. So, yeah, and
it doesn't ever seem to go wrong, either, until in the show... when it does go very wrong, but
that scene with
which is also kind of like a haunting scene because it's just the first time. I think the first time we see that things don't go according to plan for him.
Well, to be fair, at least in the show, the moment with Cersei where he implies that he knows about the incest, and he's like, knowledge is power. And then Cersei has the guards grab him and put the knife to his throat, and it's like, power is power, is what Cersei says. He got a little big for his britches, I think.
He did.
In that moment. But I see what you're saying, though. Like, it's crazy when it doesn't work, because he's so good at the game.
Yeah. And then to see him, like we were saying earlier, kind of just like childhood trauma, it all comes back up in that one scene. Where he just starts blubbering like a fucking baby. Yeah, and he just is grasping at anything that he can see that might get him out of that situation.
That was such a good moment by the actor. Like
that's one of those moments where, like, it's bad story wise, but you got to give him credit. Like, acting that part, it was pretty. And I also like how that whole episode was kind of orchestrated for you to think that things are going to go his way. Like, they're making you think that he's pinning the Stark girls against each other. And then it's just a good moment when they come back together and they're like, yeah, we know you do what you always do, and you're a fucking piece of shit. And that's when yeah.
Aidan Gillen is just a crazy actor. I mean, him and Peaky Blinders as well. Yeah, all right. We're gushing at this point. At least I'm gushing at this point. I love his character. He is a chaotic, evil piece of garbage.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody... I think that he's... Like, for the intents and purposes of this list, he's at the bottom right. Like, he's as far as it gets. I don't think there's anybody on this list that gets more chaotic evil until we get into Euron Greyjoys and the Qyburns and the... later in the series, I think that there's debate about, who's more. But... okay, well, yeah, I think that covers Littlefinger pretty good.
Okay.
Might move it around a little bit. Next, what do you want to do next?
What do we want to do next?
We could just go from top to bottom if we want.
Let's do one that makes no sense. Rickon Stark.
Oh.
Just because I feel like I want to talk about how fucked over he gets in the show, at least.
Poor Rickon, dude. Look at him. He's so fucking sad in that picture.
So obviously I haven't gotten far enough in the books to really know where his story goes, like his real story.
Yeah. He's a fucking cannibal. Sorry, spoiler.
Well, alright then.
I'm not kidding.
Because I guess in the show, and I don't even know if he ends up living in the books up to the point.
Do you want to know?
No, not really.
Okay,
I'll get there. But just in terms of the show, I guess, it was wild to see. Like, they kind of built up the Bran and Rickon storyline for a while, and then obviously Bran goes his own direction, and then Rickon kind of gets left out of that whole thing, so you don't really know what's going on. And then there's that whole period in, like, Season 5 or Season 6 where neither of them are even in the show for an entire season.
Yeah.
And then just to bring him back for like one episode, just to see an arrow through his back.
Brutal.
It was brutal. So yeah, I don't know. I just saw that character and I was like,
I mean,
say anything about him.
He's such a poor, like, sad, like, even in Season 1, in both the book and the show, like, Rob has to come to Catelyn as she's been sitting for weeks at Bran's bedside, and he's
you have another
Rickon's
son.
bawling his eyes out,
Right.
like grabbing he's tugging on my leg, asking where everybody's at.
Because he's what, like 4?
In the books, I think he's 3 or 4, yeah, and in the show, I think he's 4 and he's 6 in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, he's just this little kid who doesn't get what he needs. All of his family dies before he's even capable of understanding, like...
Yeah.
I mean, and, yeah, it's... He's a young kid, so we're not gonna, like, ascribe a lot of morality to him. I mean, I guess if we wanted to, him sicking Shaggy Dog onto Lewin was kind of out of pocket. I mean, Lewin's just... being the administrator doing his thing, and Shaggy Dog rips his arm open. Not cool, but...
Yeah. I mean, I feel like with someone like him, just because he is so young, I feel like this could be another baseline of just neutral. Because, like, he doesn't really have anything to go off of in the first book.
He's pretty chaotic, I think. I definitely don't think he's more good or evil. He's definitely not good or evil.
Because if you take into account just how, like, all the Starks are represented, they kind of have... they're kind of also compared with, like, the personality of their wolves, too. They're kind of, tied together. And you think, Shaggy Dog being the mangy fucking mutt that just, like, gets no attention and kind of just gets left out to the side. I think you're right with the chaotic neutral.
Yeah, I mean, he's seen as feral, almost.
Like,
that's how he's referred to in the books, for sure. In the show, it's a little, I mean, it's still the case, but a little less so. Like, him in the crypts, when... Yeah. It's the last Bran chapter in Game of Thrones where he's in the crypts, and that's when he bites Lewin, I think, is because he's down in the crypts and nobody knows he's there.
Mm.
And he's down there like smoldering because he already knows that his dad's dead.
Yeah.
Like he needs guidance to be more lawful, but he's too young to receive it. It's just a bad situation. So.
Yeah. All right, a quick one, but
yeah. Next up, let's go with. All right, do we do it now? All right.
Oh shit.
No, all right. We'll do his owner first. All right. Where's Jeor Mormont, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch?
Down there, towards the right.
There he is. The old bear. Jeor Mormont. He's look at him. He's quite the guy. He's very intense looking. That's for sure. He's a good guy. I don't think anybody disputes that.
No, definitely pretty lawful too. So
yeah,
somewhere maybe in that sector, maybe a little towards neutral in some cases, but
yeah, I think he's definitely an interesting case because I definitely don't think he's as lawful as Ned Stark. Given that, I mean, and most of it is, I think it's almost because he's the opposite of Ned Stark in that I think that we agreed Ned Stark is driven by his lawful nature and he's good as a kind of a secondary. It's a consequence of his like sense of honor and stuff that he's good. I think Jeor is the opposite almost, where he's a good man and he is very pragmatic about the Night's Watch. I mean, and a good example is he doesn't choose to hang all of the Night's Watchmen that run off to Molestown for whores, or he doesn't hang Jon for leaving for the night and then coming back because of his friends. So, I definitely think that he's lawful, but he prioritizes being practical. And also, he understands the human element. He understands the turmoil that Jon must be feeling, or at least he attempts to empathize.
Yeah.
The big thing for Jeor that really is a question mark for me is how the hell did he get in the Night's Watch?
I was just going to ask that because I didn't know if that was something that was established.
No, it's never really touched on.
So is he not like the firstborn of his family to like inherit? He is.
Yeah, okay. So he was the Lord of Bear Island until at least it would have been back. It was after Robert's Rebellion, I think, is when he left for the Night's Watch, and that's why Jorah Mormont, his son, inherited it because he inherited Bear Island.
So then it's after that where he gets involved with the slaves and expanded.
So that's what happened.
So it's not. Because I was going to ask if it's known that he chose to go or he was sent.
It was, yeah. It's not known, although I would. It maybe seems it was like it was. I feel like it would have been stated if he was made to go, like if he had some sort of crime he committed. I think because it is seen in the North as like a thing of honor to go to the Night's Watch.
So maybe I mean, and this is just speculation, but I guess if that's after, because I was thinking if it was beforehand, maybe the whole situation with Jorah kind of just put shame to his house, and he's like, I'll just go to the Night's Watch and leave my inheritance to whatever his sister that ends up going to.
It could be. I guess this is where I'm not remembering exactly the time. I feel like...
Because that to me seems like the most obvious to me reason why that would happen. But if it's afterward, like...
I don't remember.
He doesn't have any more children, right? Outside of
it's just, as far as we're aware, it's just Jorah. Yeah. And then he has his sister, Mage Mormont, who's the she-bear, and she's the one who inherits Bear Island after Jorah leaves. And then it's in the show, at least, her daughter, because Mage Mormont dies in the Red Wedding.
Yeah, is a badass.
Yeah,
I love any scene
absolutely,
that she's in.
Dude. Anyway, we're off topic. Jeor Mormont, I think. There's questions about how he joined. If it really was him leaving because of Jorah and him dishonoring his house, I think that says a lot about his. I mean, that almost I don't know if that's true. I mean,
that was all speculation. I don't.
It's a really good point because I always remembered it as Jeor left for the Night's Watch and gave Bear Island to Jorah before Jorah did the whole slave shit. But if it is like you're saying, that would make me put him up right next to Ned Stark. Because that's a very, it is a very lawful thing. But then again, he didn't leave Longclaw. He didn't leave his house sword with the house when he went to the Night's Watch, which is kind of
true. Maybe that would bring it away from lawful, just for holding on to that, because obviously.
But then again, it was Jorah giving it back, because Jorah inherited it and then gave it back to Gior because of.
Well, maybe he's like, oh, it's tainted now. I can't.
Maybe that's a good point. Valyrian steel is pretty fucking pricey, though.
That's true.
But no, you're right, 100%. I think
the answer was just so I could end up with Jon.
yeah. It was a plot point. It's a plot convenience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's up there. I think he's probably. I mean, one of the things that I think about a lot when I'm trying to gauge, like, part of the reason we call it a baseline is like, how would Gior handle the stuff that Ned Stark goes through? Because that kind of, like, based on that, it's like, is he above Ned Stark on the good axis, or I don't think he's more lawful. But
no, I wouldn't say more lawful, but if we were to make it, I feel like maybe slightly more good, because I feel like him in those situations, like you were saying, and Ned was in, he would tend to stray away from the lawfulness and maybe choose more of the good. Ned would choose, like you were saying, lawful over good. He would choose good over lawful. So it's kind of.
I'd agree. Yeah, I think they're at the very least relative. Maybe Jorah is a little higher. I don't know. Yeah, an interesting one, I guess.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about his raven, or do we want to talk about Jorah's son now?
Well, I don't know anything about the. You said there's a theory that went along with the raven.
Okay, there are so many things already. We're already. How long into this? We're like 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
And I have had like so many side tangents I wanted to start that I didn't, because I'm respecting where you're at in the series. But man, there's a lot of good stuff with this freaking Raven. I think the major thing, it's a meme that it's in here, but it's interesting because there's a big theory that I feel like it's one of those theories that I think is almost confirmed. At least to me, it's canon. Which is that the Raven is actually being controlled by Blood Raven at random points throughout the show and in the books.
By
Blood Raven, the tree seer who teaches Bran how to perfect his sight and everything. So there's talks of, and part of the reason is because there's a lot of kind of questionable things that goes on with different animals throughout the series, which kind of leads to certain plot points to occur. So a good example is there was a lot of talk about, let's talk about the direwolf mother of all of the direwolves that died. Mm-hmm. Direwolves hadn't been sighted south of the Wall for many years, if I remember correct.
Yeah,
it had been a long ass time, and so there's a lot of thoughts that Blood Raven might have warped into the direwolf to bring it down there. So then it would give birth to all of the direwolves that would then be given to the Starks for the sake of giving them to the Starks. There's still a lot of questions, at least in the books, about the extent to which Blood Raven can really understand. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of questions about how much did he foresee, but there's certainly an argument to be made that like stuff like that. At least there's ambiguity in why it happened. Is it plot convenience, or is it still plot convenience, but Blood Raven is being used as the plot device to make it not just a Deus Ex Machina? So, but the Raven, I mean, there were points where, like, I think when Ned dies, Jon Snow is talking with Gior. I believe the Raven is like spouting out like dead, 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 or whatever. Like it just has these really strange lines at times where it's like, what the hell? Like, why does it know?
Yeah.
To say that, or I don't know. Or isn't it during the Lord Commander election that maybe this is show only where it starts going snow, snow, snow when like they're voting and stuff. Like I don't know. There's it's weird though.
Into the later seasons, those are the episodes that I've only seen once.
Because you don't dare revisit.
In terms of this show, I don't remember like much of these instances you're talking about. I mean, I have noticed just listening to the audiobook. Yeah, there's definitely some points where I'm like, it's kind of weird.
In the audiobook that you're... So wait, who's doing the voiceover for it?
It's Last Seen a Horse is the guy's YouTube channel. I'm sure that's a reference to something that I just don't understand yet.
Sure.
But... yeah, I started watching pretty early on, and he's really just been like pumping them out, like once, maybe twice a day.
Shout out, I guess.
Shout out. He does a really good job, and I mean, it's part of the reason. I mean, I have all the books. I just haven't read them because I mean, I've gotten so far in the audiobook.
Sure.
And it's just easier for me. I kind of just throw it on.
Yeah.
During the day when I'm like eating breakfast or whatever, so I don't have to sit down and read. But.
Does he do the Raven voice? Like,
yeah, he does.
No
everything.
way. He doesn't.
It gets a little cringy to me at some points, but like I gotta respect the commitment because he does all the songs.
Does he really?
He'll sing everything.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's going to maybe going on YouTube. So some of the songs he is tone deaf, so it's like kind of tough. But like I said, I respect the commitment. He'll put like. Whenever the horn blows at the wall, he has a noise for it.
Yeah.
So he'll blow that, and like he has a different voice for every single person, and he will. I mean, it's impressive. Really cool. I really enjoy.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
So yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, this Raven. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I mean, really, what this will devolve into is if we accept the theory that Blood Raven is at least partially, like at times, working into the Raven.
Mm-hmm.
That then basically this is what is the alignment of Blood Raven, and if that is not a 2-hour dissertation, then I don't know what is. So maybe we just I don't know why I included this thing. I mean, it's a good guy. He just likes corn, hangs out, you know. He's a little chaotic, I think, because he's an animal. I mean, maybe more than a little. I mean, I don't know. He'll be our chaotic good.
I'll let you
baseline.
We're gonna where we're putting those or him. Because I haven't gotten deep into the theories, but talking about it this much definitely makes me want to do a deep dive.
That's right. This is the purpose here. Nobody's gonna watch this video, but this is at least gonna make you good.
It'll just give us more to talk about.
I do.
Oh shit, my bad.
You're good. Don't spill your beer.
It's empty.
Okay, we can talk about Jorah Mormont real quick, just because I already mentioned maybe talking about him. Jorah's a fucking creep. In the first book...
Getting to the point I am now in the books, I would definitely agree with that way more, because I feel like in the show, he's made out to be this guy who's like, yeah, he's made some mistakes, but that's like in his past. And when he's introduced in the show, obviously he's still in contact with Robert and whatever, being a spy. But as soon as he makes that decision to kind of stray away from that, the only like questionable things he does is just to cover that up until it finally comes out. So I don't know. I guess just in terms of the show, I'd say, I mean, I don't know about placement, but I was just gonna say in the books now he is a fucking creep.
Dude, yeah. So you're in Storm of Swords. So you
he
recently went through
Daenerys.
The kiss, where she's naked and
which is
she's
like
man, that entire that last half of that chapter still haunts me because like George just loves to write shit in such a way that really like, especially Daenerys chapters.
It gets
they're so tough sometimes, man. Like
listening to the audiobook too, listening to someone actually have to read that out loud is kind of weird, but
isn't there a line in that chapter? God, I'm such a weirdo for remembering this. I think that there's a line in that chapter too where it's like she covered herself quickly to ensure her nipples don't deceive her. Or it's like something like that because he kissed her and like that implies that she's kind of down with it, but like she's 15.
It's definitely implied that there's some kind of reaction that she has to it where it's just very confusing to her because she doesn't know how to feel about it. It's
she's a child. Like it's so weird the dynamic that he has with her because most of it, like it's one thing in the show he's played by a very handsome looking actor as you can see on the screen. But in the books he's just this like weird looking, like he's just like an old kind of gross looking dude that's like in that scene he's like sweating gross and like he's just
there's a lot of description about like his stench, like what he smells like.
Like he's just this weird dude and it's strange because his dynamic with Daenerys is heavily like, at least it can be interpreted that a lot of why he likes her so much or is so devoted to her is because it's just stated
like
that she
ex-wife.
looks like that's so fucking weird, dude. And I mean, that whole thing also, his ex-wife is what facilitates the whole slave slaver trading thing, which is just...
I forget the exact details of
it's
that whole
story, he finds this Hightower girl, I can't remember her name, but she's a Hightower from Old Town, and he's smitten by her, and so he marries her, and she's...
The tournament that day, he's like, just gets this insane rush, and he's knocking everybody off, and then he makes this big gesture at the end, and that's what gets them together, and then it's like, over time, they just kind of... I don't know, I forget all the details.
No, you're 100% right, and then obviously, the long and the short of it is she goes to fucking Bear Island, this small-ass, cold...
Oh, yeah, and then she's
like, this is
resents
terrible.
him, and then wants to leave, and...
Yeah, it's heavily implied, at least in the books, in my reading of it, that he kind of manipulates her almost into coming, or at least, if she was so upset with the situation when she got there, you'd think that she would have known what she was getting into going that far north. Like, you think so? It implies that he didn't really tell her either. He's like, listen, I love her, or I love the idea of her, because it doesn't even seem like they have
it's definitely the idea.
Yeah,
because I think it's mentioned that they end up. Obviously, because she doesn't want to be there, that they just grow apart, and it's not really like a loving relationship in any sense.
To be fair, there's not a lot of genuine, healthy, loving relationships.
That's a good point. It's a very good point.
The paragon of a loving relationship in book 1 is fucking Khal Drogo and Daenerys.
Yeah.
In some people's eyes at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, him selling prisoners as slaves is a pretty not good thing to do, and the fact that it is in service of this woman who, for all intents and purposes, it's a shitty situation to be sure, but when you're confronted with something like that, and you are the Lord, presumably he's the Lord of Bear Island at the time, he kind of has an obligation to his people over any of the desires for luxuries that his wife he's totally head over heels for. That's just, his priorities are definitely not straight, and the fact that he goes so far as to sell human beings to continue to try to satisfy her is just, it shows that his moral compass it's heavily driven by what he loves, what he wants, and it was also driven by what he perceived that she liked and wanted, and obviously he was off because she fucking left to, she was to Bravos or somewhere? I don't know.
Yeah, somewhere in
Essos.
Yeah. So definitely more on the chaotic side then, or do you want to say more neutral, because he's definitely not lawful.
Yeah, it's. I think we both agree he's evil. I don't think he's. I
wouldn't say that weird. Evil though, because I don't know.
Well, I think that the fact that he's so smitten, I guess him betraying Daenerys as well. To be fair, he didn't have a very deep relationship with her in the beginning.
Yeah, it wasn't as much of a betrayal to her as, I guess, not at first, right? It becomes a betrayal because he ends up being devoted to her, and it's...
But he's only devoted to her because of her dragons. And that's only in the show, too. In the books, it's, not really that clear that he's, he obviously kneels.
Yeah, I guess he says I am going more off of the show then, because in the show it's heavily implied that, to Daenerys, he is this very strong figure who's been a good moral compass to her and a good advisor her the entire way up until the point where she finds out about it.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I think that there's... You could definitely make an argument that he's chaotic. I think that him staying with Daenerys, choosing to stay, obviously a lot of that's the dragons and stuff, and maybe it's also his unhealthy relationship with her. I think that he has some amount of dedication to, the core values of being a Westerosi knight. That is...
Yeah.
He's in the Dothraki sea, and he's still in his plate armor, and he's educating Daenerys on the ways of Westeros and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I feel like rather than assimilating into a new culture, like, he stays firm to the values that he has.
He stays firm to his values, and he's also... I mean, even if it is just for the dragons that he's staying with her and, like, being an advisor, he still is being... I guess a decent advisor in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think his counsel... listen, Storm of Swords... That was a weird scene, but his counsel is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, isn't he the reason that she goes and gets the Unsullied? I think he's the one that advised it, because she wants to go right to Pentos. I think to Illyrio, and she's got nobody. She's got, unbeknownst to her, she has Barristan with her, and she has Jorah and her tiny ass Khalasar, and that's it. And he's like, no, you got to go get an army.
You said unbeknownst to her that it's Barristan?
Oh, fuck. Did I spoil it?
I think, yeah.
Oh, no.
That's all good, though. I mean, I was at first, like, as soon as the guy gets, I forget the name he goes under when he's introduced.
Oh, I don't remember either.
But I'm like, wasn't that supposed to be Barristan? Like, well...
Yeah, the one that kills the Manticore,
yeah, everything that was being explained, I was like, I thought... Like, who is this other random character that they're bringing in right now? But
he's
that makes total sense.
You're talking about the eunuch guy? I can't remember his name either, but the eunuch guy he's squire to.
Yeah.
The big guy that as you have to slash him before he fights you. So that way... You haven't gotten that far yet. It's so funny. He's an awesome character. He's so...
Barristan?
The guy he's squiring for. Yeah, just... You're in for it. It's a good...
Okay.
I love that dynamic. But, anyway, sorry, a little bit of a tangent. I think Jorah, that he could be argued to be kind of chaotic, kind of lawful. I think we can even him out and say he's neutral. I mean, I think he's a little more on the lawful side, especially as time goes on, he gets to be more lawful, I think. But I would agree that a lot of his actions up until now have been chaotic, but it's not because he's chaotic per se, but because it's in service of these, like, he wants to do well by his wife, and like he's just obsessed with this woman that he barely knows. I don't know. I definitely think. I mean, honestly, I think he's not super evil. I almost think he's in line with Joffrey. Like, I think he's
really,
because I think that his character development brings him more towards the top left. I think he's kind of neutral evil. By this point, lawful neutral. Sorry, I think that now he's more neutral evil because he's done some chaotic stuff. I mean, and I definitely don't think that there's anything healthy about what he has with Daenerys in the beginning of the story.
Yeah,
but we can revisit.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, let's do some easy ones real quick just to get them out of the way.
Okay.
Let's do real quick, in lieu of some of our Night's Watch friends, let's do some of his, Jon Snow's and good buddies.
Do you have Ed in here too?
I do not have Ed in here. Because I don't know, I don't remember if he's in season 1. He might be, but...
I don't remember
I don't think he's a new recruit. He was in the Night's Watch before them, if I remember correct.
Oh.
Because he doesn't say... I don't think he swears his vows with them.
Okay.
But I don't know. Anyway, these two, pretty minor characters. But at the same time, I think that, there's a small cast with the Night's Watch side. Just like, I'd say that the Night's Watch and Daenerys... So Jon Snow and Daenerys' stories are both... There's not a lot of... and there's not a lot of characters. So these guys, even though they're pretty minor characters, they have a pretty big role to play in the context of like how they impact the main character in that area, which is Jon and Sam, I'd say. I think them in the beginning, it's very clear that... Like, it's made out pretty clearly to be that they are not happy with being in the Night's Watch, and... It's a big contrast with Jon, who seen it as this noble decision to be made that allows him to get away from the hateful stepmother that he has. And I don't know. I think that their dynamic with John in the beginning is very interesting, but it's definitely made clear once they kind of get past the resentment that they feel for their situations. Because is it Pip, I think, that he states that, like, when John runs off and is on his way down, Pip's like, dude, like, you're not the only one who's been dealt a shitty hand. Like, isn't he the one that he was in bed with a noblewoman who wanted him, and then she said he raped her, and then he got thrown to the watch, or they cut off his dick or something? Like, he got totally fucked over, and he's like, I'm here because I have to be now. Like,
I don't remember which one had which story. I remember that one being one where, it was just him, like, getting caught in bed with the wrong girl, and that's why he was sent.
That might be show only, too. I don't remember.
Yeah, I was thinking that was Gren. So it wasn't one of... It was Pip, in the show at least. I think it was that he was a squire for some old lord, and the old lord, like, tried to make a move on him, or, like, grab his dick or something.
That's what it was.
And he was like, hey, that's not okay, or whatever, and the lord just, like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
sent him to the wall.
It's so interesting how it's really funny how much of a little brat John is at this point in this series.
At the very beginning, like when he first gets to the wall, and he's first realizing this is not what I thought this was. You're right, he is a complete brat, because he's just in that mode of just like, well, fuck, now I'm here, and it's not what I thought it was going to be, so I'm just going to say, fuck this, fuck everyone. That's when he starts just demolishing them when they're, like, practicing sword fighting or whatever.
Yeah.
And at first everyone was like, man, this fucking rich prick shows up and just beats the shit out of all of us. And, it isn't until... Is it Mormont's advice that he starts saying, like, these guys have never had any...
It's Maester Aemon. That's a really good scene, too. It's when
Aemon where he's like, these kids don't have formal training like you.
Or no.
I think it might have been...
Was it Mormont? Or maybe it was Benjen. Or who was it?
Benjen was gone at that point.
No, it was Donald Noy in the books. Donald Noy is not in the show, but Donald Noy, I think he's the blacksmith or something. But he's the one in the books for sure. In the show, I can't remember who it was. I think it is not Benjen.
I almost want to say. So I think it might have been Mormont. Also, what's the asshole's name?
Sir Alistair.
Yeah.
Who is probably the
next one. It might be him. But either way, that he is like a prissy bitch when he shows up.
Yeah.
And he kind of... that's... And we can get into this when we talk about John, but that's something with him where he definitely is, for sure, more of a good character, because he's like, yeah, you're right. And then he just decides to train these two, and that's how they get... become like such good friends.
Yeah, I think that John, there's such a good folly to John's current mental space. I think that a lot of the growth that John goes through is, of course, in part because of the people that advise him on, like, the reality of his situation, but it's these guys. Yeah. It's Pip and Gren. It's Sam.
There are some good moments too where he, like, is being that, like, kind of prissy bitch, and he gets some good advice. And it is kind of reliant on those people around him that kind of steer him in that direction.
Yeah, I definitely think, and then the fact that after he beats their asses and they all kind of hate him for it, that, he turns around and he begins to develop a relationship with them. It's really interesting that pretty quickly they acclimate to that. And it I think goes to show that they're not so... I guess I feel like that's more on the good side, because it feels like they're not so tied up in, like, oh, you slighted me, so now I need to hate you forever. It's like... It's
more of a, like, and this is kind of what the core values, I guess, of the Night's Watch is, where it is a brotherhood, and the fact where these two probably came from, they didn't have probably any of these people to look out for them, or be like, hey, you're doing this wrong, but let me help you out with your, like, sword fighting or whatever. And yeah, it just brings them all pretty close together. And the fact that they're open to that and not one of the other guys who has just gotten such a shit end of the stick that they're just bitter and just fuck everybody.
Yeah, I will say, though, when Sam comes around, I think that really is it's where it shows, because I mean, like, it's one thing when you're them and you're confronted with somebody who's perceived to be higher than you in terms of like the hierarchy, where Jon is better than him at sword fighting. He's from a lord's household, even if he is a bastard. But then Sam comes along, and I think that kind of shows how you handle that. And, like, they decide to kind of shit on him and call him piggy and stuff. Like,
but then once Jon kind of brings it up to him, where it's like, hey, he's our brother, he's one of us now. They do listen to that. Yeah, and then it ends up, I mean, kind of the 4, or I guess 5 of them. I'm not really sure at what point Ed comes in or whatever. And I feel like something in the books, and this isn't about them two again, we can talk about this when we get to Sam. In the books, it is way more heavily emphasized that he is just useless.
Oh, Sam?
In every sense. Except for the fact that he knows how to read, which is literally all he has going for him. It's just like he really is just a bitch. But he's one of my other favorite characters too, because he's just I don't know. I can say a lot about all the Night's Watch people.
Even more than Mormont's Crow or Raven.
Yeah. I feel like I can just say a lot about the Night's Watch characters, because that was my favorite arc throughout the entire show in the book.
I mean, totally fair. That it's a very good moment. I think there's a lot of really good moments in that side of the story for sure. But I think that they're definitely on the good side. I'd hesitate to put them very high, because it feels like, at least for the first book, their morality is heavily influenced by Jon's. Like, it's Jon that tells them no, and then they listen. It's Jon that, I think Jon facilitates a lot of their action. So how much we can really attribute to them in terms of their moral agency is kind of questionable. But I definitely think there's no doubt about it that they're on the lawful side, given that the hands that they're dealt, they still, rather than saying, F it, I'm going to desert, no, they're going to stay. So, what do you think? Are you okay with us maybe doing a couple more from the Night's Watch, and then we can call it for part 1?
Yeah, you want to do Sam and Jon?
Yeah, I think that would
be
good.
For now.
Real quick, I guess
we have this fucker. Okay. I hate this dude.
Yeah, while we have the new recruits from the Night's Watch on our mind, Rast. So
I think I should say, in the book, the point that I'm at right now, it is the last chapter that I had past the wall was where Sam killed the White Walker. So this is the point where, like, this guy almost, like, started I don't know if it was him specifically, but he was almost taking part in, like, the rebellion, or the mutiny. Yeah. And
him and Carl Fulkentana.
Yeah. And this guy's just a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of camaraderie it seems that he has with his newfound brothers when he comes in. I mean, isn't he described as, I think he's, at least in the show, I think he's the one that's stated to be a raper by
probably a raper,
Tyrion.
And I think the one with all the boils and just
that's Carl Tanner. Carl. It's with a Q. I think is that him? What? I think that's right. I don't remember exactly the name.
So is that the guy with the boils in the show that, like, takes over the hut, kind of? He's the
guy with the boils is the one that he's like the main mutineer. Okay. And Rast is in the show at least kind of the second guy in that whole gig. I mean, at least for book 1 and season 1, I mean, he's the guy that, rather than embracing the camaraderie of his new found brotherhood, he decides to double down and basically take a fat shit on Jon's idea of, like, maybe we don't beat the fat kid.
Right.
and he decides to go fucking hog wild when Sir Alistair gets mad at how useless Sam is. And so they have to, what is it? The old soap bar in a sock and beat the shit out of him.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of those moments.
Yeah, in the show when they have Jon's direwolf ghosts come up and snarl at him in his sleep. I mean, so no doubt about it. He's a guy that really doesn't give a shit about the
He's
the broader moral implications of him being an asshole to somebody that is perceived to be lower than him. So, I mean...
He's more of a selfish character and one that really just... Anything he does is for his own benefit.
Yeah. So, I almost think, I mean... He's not super chaotic, but he's definitely... I mean, in the later part of the show, like, by book 3, when the mutineers have at it at Craster's, I mean, he's definitely very chaotic and very evil at that point. Not very, I don't know. The amount is debatable, but he's on the chaotic evil side then. At this point, he's kind of neutral evil, I'd say. I mean, he's...
Yeah, and I guess I am thinking more about where I'm at, whereas right now I kind of forget. I mean, he is really just like the schoolyard bully.
It's just the guy that, he's just the schoolyard bully.
Yeah.
That's all he really is at this point. But, yeah, I mean, plenty of movement for him later on.
Yeah, way over to when they're just fucking in a drunk haze in Craster's Keep raping all of his daughters.
Oh my god. This is it, dude. There's no chance I'm monetizing this, but even if I were to... Susan is going to come in and just just give me a big backhand to the face.
Yeah, dude. That's not our fault, though. We didn't write the fucking book. We're just talking about
George! What the hell, George? Yeah. Okay. You mentioned Sam. We'll do Sam.
Yes.
So, Samwell Tarly.
He is...
Such a cute, plump... stout man.
Yeah. So obviously more upper left here, but I think the exact place. I mean, at the beginning, maybe more of a neutral character at the beginning, because I wouldn't put him in chaotic or evil. He seems like,
I don't know. I mean,
a very just. He always wants to be. I don't know.
Well, I feel like part of why I would say he's more to the top right is because of the fact that he decides to swear off the gods that he was raised under. Like, he was raised in the light of the Seven with the rest of the Tarly family, and by the time he's taking his vows, he says, no, I'm going to go with John. I'm going to try out some new gods. I'm going to forsake the tradition that I grew up on.
Yeah.
That seems a little chaotic.
Feel like
it's definitely not a bad thing, but it's chaotic to me. But at the same time, I mean, that's just...
I guess that is it's not a lawful thing to do.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing to do because, I mean, his reasoning for it is like, I mean, the Seven have never been kind to me, so maybe the gods of this guy that I just met, who seems like a very... I don't know.
So you think it's more pragmatic? Like, it's just him being practical? Like, listen,
yeah,
gods didn't do much
I guess in the show, that's what it's made out to seem like. It's more of
fair.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think in book 1, Sam isn't given a lot of chances to really show how lawful or chaotic he is, because it's not like he's the other guys where he could just desert. Like, his dad will just kill him if he goes home. Like, it's not like he has another option, so he's kind of stuck in the situation he's in.
He's really just... He's put into this new environment where it seems like everybody's out to get him, and he is like the... In his mind, and everybody else's, he is the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
Where he is literally just somebody that people step over and not even really acknowledge, except to be like, you fat pig.
Yeah.
So to him, he's just like in this complete defense mode. So like, it is hard to judge someone's character off of that when it's just... When that whole first book is just him like trying to come to terms with being here and like just trying to make friends.
Yeah. I definitely think that part of another reason I think he may be a little bit more on the chaotic side is actually the fact that his dad has went so far out of his way. I mean, having him bathe in fucking blood, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Thinking that that'll turn him into the warrior that he's what Dickon is. Which, Dickon, what a fucking what a name. But, yeah, I mean, it seems to me like part of, I guess, why I see it as a little more chaotic, at least in the beginning, is the fact that throughout all of those different trials and like those different methods, we'll use as the word for it, that his dad uses to try to push him to be the archetypal patriarch of the family that he needs to be the lord that inherits Horn Hill. Like, in reality, Sam has all these other wants, and he doesn't hide from those. And
that's true.
That's part of why his dad's like, dude, you're not the traditional. Like, I don't like you for that.
Right. He is. I mean, it's said that he's the one to, he likes to sing and like sniff flowers and fucking read books all day, and he's not the one in the yard sword fighting and all that shit. So, I mean, in his own way, I guess that going against like everything his dad is trying to push him to be and just saying like no. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and some of that, I mean, I don't think that he's very chaotic. I think
definitely not, but
I think that, and I definitely think he's on the good side. Although one of the other things, I mean, just as he's not given a lot of chances to really show how chaotic or lawful he is in the first book, I don't think he's got a lot of showings for good or evil either. Like, he's not.
He doesn't even have his own chapter right until
not until
book 3, I think.
Yeah, it's book 3 that he gets his first POV. So I mean, I think that he's a good guy, but he's a good guy insofar as he's just weak. Like, he doesn't have the capacity, it seems, at least in book 1, to really be a moral person. Like, he's he has to go with the flow because he's scared of conflict and stuff. And that's
he's like he's just in defense mode at this point. It's all just avoidance. Yeah,
I think that it seems to me like his character development is like kind of from sort of like around here all the way up to more this way later on. But to me, in the beginning, he's slightly good, slightly chaotic. And but we can move him around later as well.
Yeah.
Last one, I think, and then we can call it for now. Do you want to do Jon Snow?
Let's do it, yeah.
Jon Snow. We already talked about him a little bit here. I believe the term prissy bitch was used a couple of times.
But I will say, I called him that, but he is also my favorite character in this series for sure. And I just really like his... and I guess I'm not going to have as much to say about just book 1, but his development, at least in the show, which, I don't know, maybe my opinion will change if I get in the books, I'm not sure. But just his like overall character development in the show I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the characters that undergoes some of the most difficult trials. I mean, like, which is of course going to be the case because of the fact that he's a protagonist and a POV character. I mean, he's got a lot of interesting plot developments occurring throughout the series. But I think, I mean, in the beginning of the books, I mean, at least for the duration of book 1, he moves in the duration of book 1. I think that he kind of goes from, if anything, he seems kind of, I mean, he has this idealized version of what he wishes, where he wishes he was the true-born son of Ned Stark, he was the heir to Winterfell. He has those thoughts.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like he's a little, like him going to the Night's Watch was designed as a kind of a chaotic anti-establishment move, where he's not going to just be the normal guy, that he's going to go and he's going to do something noble and get away from where he grew up.
In his mind, it was the only real option he had to kind of go down that path of his father and try to be like a noble, like honorable person, because he didn't see any ways into proving himself in the Seven Kingdoms. Like, he kind of felt like the Wall, in his idealized version in his head, is this place where it is an honorable thing to go. Like, it used to be, at least, that you go there, you're a watcher of the Wall, a protector of the realm or whatever, and he was thinking in his mind, like, this is how I kind of prove that I am maybe not the true son of Ned Stark, but I am a son of Ned Stark.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I mean, I think that there's no doubt that he has a moral compass in book 1. I mean, when the fact that he has even the inclination, or like he feels enough of a motivation to step in when he sees Sam getting hurt, obviously, when he's getting his ass kicked. And I guess also, I mean, he's kind of naive, it seems like, in the first book, but he definitely has a strong sense of what he believes to be right or wrong, and he is altruistic to be sure. Like, he cares about other people. He is self-sacrificing.
Because, he definitely cares for sure, because it's, like, throughout the book, he does have a good relationship with at least some of the Starks, like the true Starks.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's them that kind of, I don't know, I was trying to say.
Hey, honestly, I think that we can narrow it down pretty easily to he's in the top left quadrant. I think the amount, I think that he's not super lawful in the beginning. I think that his character development definitely tends towards the top left over time. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, one of the things that we've already talked about a couple of times is that with younger characters, you don't have the agency yet to really be major moral individuals. And characters like Jon, characters like Daenerys, especially Daenerys, but I think Jon as well, they're characters that in the very beginning, they don't have a lot of decision-making power. Like,
for sure.
To be sure, Jon, before he goes to the Night's Watch, that's like the only decision he could make. Beyond that,
that's what I was saying earlier. Like,
he doesn't have any other options.
It's not just him like going, like trying to emulate his father. It really is his only option.
Yeah,
like he has no rights as a bastard.
He's not going to King's Landing.
No lands. If anything, he's gonna be fighting under Robb forever. Like just pretty much being Robb's bitch.
Yeah,
but there is a good relationship there. But it really was just like his only option.
Yeah, I think he's definitely coming into, like, book one is him going from a character that is still kind of a child and doesn't have a whole lot of decisions that he's made for himself to, like, I'm making the first decisions that'll really facilitate, like, he's beginning to develop an identity for himself.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, he will continue to use that identity as the basis for decisions he makes in the future, which I think tends to push him more lawful, more good. But in the book one, I think he's right around here. What do you think?
Yeah. Like, as a whole, yeah. I'd say in his development kind of towards the beginning, at least starting out at the Night's Watch, I might say closer to neutral or chaotic, just because this is the first time he's, like, away from the eyes of his father, right? So he doesn't have this kind of figure to kind of lean on or lean towards. He is, like, all on his own. Like, these are all his decisions. And like we said at first, he is just, like, kind of going on his way to fuck people up just because he's pissed that it's not what he thought it would be.
Yeah, that's part of why I don't put him so high. Like, I'm kind of torn between, like, how high do I put him on the good axis? Because it's like, he does have, he's processing a lot of his feelings about his place in the world and, like, the decision that he had to make. He feels he had to make. Going to the Night's Watch, like, that decision had a lot of ramifications he wasn't prepared for. And it's very clear that, he's grappling with those, the consequences.
Yeah.
That he's stuck in the Night's Watch and he's around these rapers and thieves and, But, I don't know. It's also interesting to me, kind of to wrap it up, like, he's so naive so as to believe that he somehow would ride south after finding out that Robb has ridden down south to fight the Lannisters. He's like, I'm gonna go down and with one swing of my sword, I'm gonna end the rebellion.
That is a very chaotic moment for sure.
Like super chaotic, and it's also like, it's like, I don't even want to call it good. It's just like it's him doing something that he feels is good, but it's
just
like
a blind emotional reaction.
Yeah, and it's an easy way out too.
Yeah.
It feels like it's his way of, because he even says, like, I'll be hung as an oathbreaker because I broke my oaths to the Watch, but, like, I don't care because I'm gonna die. I want this to be my legacy. I want to die as a man that died for his family, for the Starks, and it's like. Yeah, I think that he has a lot of growth because that's a very shallow sense of being morally good. He's not making the difficult decisions. Right. He's doing something because he's that's a good point. It is a chaotic. That's a chaotic decision.
So that's what I was saying. He drifts more towards the chaotic side, at least starting off at the Night's Watch. But I guess I am forgetting. Where was he by the end of book one? Like at what point?
That was right
story.
before the ranging, wasn't it? Or
Right.
was it where they leave to what is it? The Fist of the First Men.
Yeah. So I mean, by that point, and that is after the point where Mormont is like kind of taking him under his wing a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
So I think by the end of the book, he is pushing more towards the lawful good side, not the chaotic, because he's kind of accepting that this is kind of his role now, and that's what he's striving to be. Because at first he was just completely lost in the Night's Watch. He's like, why am I even here? This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then he kind of gets taken under Mormont's wing. He's like, oh, so this is my way into living on my father's legacy.
Yeah.
So.
That's a really good point. I like where we put him. Originally, I thought he would be higher in the top left, but I mean, I think that that's the whole point of this chart being focused on book one is, we recognize that there's some growth that goes on that really moves the characters towards where we think of them as being. Because especially by the end of book 5, there's actually some good arguments. I can't wait for you to catch up because there's good arguments kind of as, John has a lot of really difficult decisions to make in the end of book 5. And there are, it's not necessarily clear that he makes the right decisions, but it's good.
I'm excited to get caught up because I really enjoyed how the show took it up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, McQueen.
Yeah, that was really fucking hard to watch. But well, I think that's gonna wrap it up for
that's a good
now.
Good ending point for a first episode, I'd say.
I would agree. We got a shitload more characters, which means we might need to put the pedal to the metal next time.
Well, it'll give me more time to catch up with the book. So I'll definitely be doing my homework.
Yeah, so I think that wraps it up for our first episode of the what is it? What was it again?
Something ass stench.
A stench of intense.
We're workshopping the name.
Yeah, that's the one. Yes. All right, we'll try to have a better name by the next episode. Yeah. But, thank you all. I say all. Thank you. Anybody
Thanks to the two people that watched the first maybe 2 minutes of this video and then clicked away.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Thank you, Mom, for the super chat. I appreciate it. I will be sure to brush my teeth tonight, I promise. Anyway, so hope to see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, and
we'll be back.
Have a good one. We'll be back.